Good evening and welcome to the Boston Society of Architects Exploring Design here at the Boston Public Library. My name is Chris Iwerks. I'm Principal of Bertaux Iwerks Architects in Boston, a member of the BSA Board of Directors, and host of this year's lecture series here at the Public Library. If you haven't already, I'd ask that you please silence your cell phone. And before I introduce tonight's speaker, there are a few words I have to say about the Boston Society of Architects, also known as the BSA. We're the largest branch of the American Institute of Architects, which is the National Association of Architects, and as a consequence, we're one of the most active and inclusive organizations. Of our 4,500 members in Massachusetts, 2,000 are allied professionals, students and citizens who've joined us because of their interest in design thinking and concern for the future of the built environment. And what that means is that anybody can join the BSA. You don't have to be an architect or a designer to join. And there are a lot of great reasons to do that. Tonight's lecture is one good example. If you're not a member of the BSA, we invite you to participate beyond these lectures and become involved in one of or more of dozens of public and professional task forces, committees, and other BSA networks currently addressing critical issues like climate change, environmentally responsive design, smart growth, and planning Boston's future. For details on these and numerous other opportunities, and to learn how to jump in whether or not you want to join the BSA, you can find us online at the very memorable address architects.org. Tonight, we're very pleased to have Patti Moreno, Roxbury's garden girl, share her passion for urban gardening and sustainable living. Born and raised in Spanish Harlem in New York City, Patti, a former cereal plant killer, started gardening 12 years ago to eat healthier and lose the weight she gained during her pregnancy. After much trial and error, she transformed her Roxbury backyard into a garden that produces nearly all the fresh vegetables her family eats. Her innovative methodology can be applied to grow food in backyards, rooftops, and even indoors. Her methods have struck a chord with urbanites who are ready to start their own gardens, live healthier lives, and drastically reduce their carbon footprint, regardless of location or experience. This has made her one of the most watched garden hosts on the web. Patti graduated from Boston University with a degree in film and video production. In 1997, she produced her first film, Squeeze, which was written and directed by her husband, Robert Patton Spruill. Together, they founded the Film Shack Productions, which has produced music videos, TV specials, TV commercials, and movies. She melded her firm background with her gardening skills to lay the groundwork for Garden Girl TV. She began by launching a website posting short how-to videos on urban gardening methods, cooking, water gardens, aquaculture, crafts, and livestock. In 2007, Patti filmed the first season of Garden Girl TV that has been a hit ever since and is currently writing a book on urban sustainable living to accompany the series. Patti is a contributing editor to Fine Gardening's Grow magazine, a writer for Organic Gardening magazine, the Old Farmer's Almanac, as well as co-host of Growing a Greener World, a new public television show about gardening and living sustainably. Patti lives in Roxbury with her family, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 12 rabbits, 14 squirrels, 20 chickens, and 100,000 and counting worms. Please join me in welcoming Patti Moreno.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Good? Oh, good. Thank you so much for coming on this finally December winter weather night. I actually go all over the country and do talks like this, and I love doing them in Boston. Imagine that. I can actually do one of these in Boston. So I was very, very glad I didn't have to travel in this winter to come and talk to you guys. As my introduction said, yes, I grew up in New York City in the 70s and the 80s. And, you know, in the age of convenience where I had TV dinners for dinner. I had processed food. That's what I was raised on. My mom was a single mom, trying to do it all. Growing up in the concrete jungle, of course, I had no real frame of reference or connection to nature or even where food comes from. Grew up, in a high-rise doorman building kind of atmosphere, and really never ever thought that I would have a green thumb. Like, what was that? I had no idea what that even meant. Being a New Yorker, trees grew in Central Park. That's where you go and see those kind of things. So for me, it was, a real just kind of 360. I went to BU, to film school, where I met my husband, and we bought our first home in Roxbury, and it was a 3-story brownstone, very, Cosby Show-like, and we also had land right next door. We had about 4,000 square feet. So for us, we were landowners. We were, we had an estate. We had to now maintain our land and, cultivate the land and take care of it and beautify it. So we took that responsibility really seriously. And the land that we had next to our house was basically just, a vacant lot that had the foundation and pretty much the rubble of the building that was there originally, just all over the place. So I had no frame of reference of nature, but we wanted to fix it up. We wanted, to contribute to improving the inner city and our neighborhood. This was our neighborhood now. And we started by putting up a fence. It was a corner lot. We put up a cedar fence, and I think fences are nice, personally. I like them. Some people have a problem with them. It kind of, says to the neighborhood, like, keep off. But for us, it was really, kind of helping our neighborhood look a little bit nicer. And, it was a cedar fence, so that, those are very, very expensive to put in. So, and we painted it, and we were outside, and people are looking at us like, what is going on? And, we had the city put a tree in front of on the sidewalk. And the first thing we did was we planted maple trees. We planted about 6 maple trees along the fence line. And again, we felt responsible, and we wanted to contribute to our environment and greening our environment and providing, fresher air and, a place for the birds to be and all that great stuff. So we planted these trees, and we were strategic, of course, in doing it, and, had a sugar maple, a red maple, a silver maple. So you can still see those trees today, where in the fall, it's, some of them are red, some of them are yellow, as they change colors. And it's really beautiful. And I think we, really did a good job in just taking basically a lot that had rubble and beautifying it and greening our neighborhood. We also, did other hardscape type things where, we added a little patio, a little trellis. First time I have ever, touched brick, basically. Had a little brick patio that we did in sand. And then I started buying plants. Now, I do have to say a little prayer for those poor plants that I killed, many, many plants, to get that green thumb, and was a serial plant killer. How many of you out there are serial plant killers, if you don't mind raising your hand? Thank you. Okay, not too many. All right, you guys are eco-conscious here. All right. I know who I'm dealing with now. But a lot of us, are kind of fall victim to, maybe biting off more than we can chew in terms of gardening and, have great intentions, and then, that watering thing, you got to water your plants. So for me, I think the first thing I killed was a hydrangea plant. Hydrangea, hydro, means water, needs lots of water. So learn that lesson very early on, so that doesn't happen to me anymore. And, tried to plant boxwood. I just think they're beautiful. Love evergreen, everything. Done, died, never made it. Until I planted a small mini orchard where I planted dwarf plum trees and dwarf apple trees. And lo and behold, apples grew. And for me, being the deprived city girl that I had always been, when I took that apple for the first time and just ate it right there and just realized how amazing fresh food actually tastes, for me that was a revelation. And that really, just flicked that switch for me and said, wait a minute, I can actually grow my own food. I can eat it and eat healthy, delicious food. I don't have to like open a plastic bag to get my apples anymore. And since my background was in film production, at our production company office, I put a bowl right in the entryway, like those, very she corporate offices have. When you walk in, they'll have like a bowl of fruit for you to take. So I did that, and all of our friends are starving artists, so they would go by and be like, "Oh, apples, free food," eat it, and just be so happy because it's amazing tasting. And I said, wait a minute, I really like this. I think this is really cool. I've got to, get up to snuff. I've got to do my research. I've got to start reading. I've got to, see how much I can actually do myself right in the backyard, right, in the middle of the city. So I spent time reading and, going to used bookstores, because I love used bookstores, who doesn't? And getting, sort of old 60s, like organic gardening for you books, very colorful 60s and 70s gardening books, and just reading up on all different types of gardening and vegetable gardening specifically. And one book I found was Mel Bartholomew's Square Foot Gardening. Has anybody heard of Square Foot Gardening before? Okay. If you haven't heard of Square Foot Gardening, definitely check it out. Obviously, it's available on Amazon. It's the #1 selling gardening book every single year for the past like 20-something years. And it really just simplifies the whole process for you. And one of the goals is to really maximize your growing space. And one of the things that you find when you have a garden and you grow your own food is a lot of times you're just not utilizing the space that you have properly. And Square Foot Gardening really just puts it all together. So studied Square Foot Gardening, and then we moved from the house that we had originally purchased, our first house, into down the street, a larger house, and we really had land now. It's 3/4 of an acre. So, and that's right in the middle of the city, again. So it's a unique property, and again, we feel responsible for our land and our environment, and beautifying our property and not having it be an eyesore in the community. The house was basically an abandoned house that was built in 1794. I'll go into a little bit of the historic part of the house because you guys are all architects. It was built in 1794, which we found out doing a lot of research, by Captain William Lambert. And he actually owned the Spooner Lambert House, which is a historic home down the street from where I live. And he built it for his daughter and her husband and their family. It was the first composite roof in New England. And basically, William Lambert was a ship captain. So he spent a lot of time in Nova Scotia, and all over there they've got, the tar and gravel roofs. And he brought that down and, built this house and used that on the roof. Now it's not a tar and gravel roof anymore. That's been replaced many, many times. And it's beautiful, it's historic. There, we've researched, and, there was a huge barn, and basically, it was a farm. You didn't build a house really in the middle of the country, basically, where Roxbury was back in the day, and not have a farm. So it had traditionally been a farm for a very long time, and the barn doesn't exist anymore, but the house does, and it's beautiful, and we restored it, and we really tried to maintain the integrity of the original design, and didn't kind of like put recessed cans everywhere or anything. So don't worry. Architects out there, we did a good job, right, Hubert? Didn't we? Okay, thank you. So the home is there. We spent time fixing the inside of the house, and then, for me, I really got to get my hands dirty. And because I had so much space, my goal was to be able to grow enough food that I could feed my family at spurts, but complete meals. that's where sort of my ultimate goal was. And one thing that I advise people to do, obviously, if you want to get into gardening and growing your own food, is to start off small and expand gradually. That's what I did. I just built a few raised beds and started growing vegetables in there. And then over time got very obsessed with raised beds and growing my own food. The cover of this month's chapter letter, that is my garden. That's my main garden in Roxbury. And that's the garden not in full bloom, can you imagine? It is maybe halfway through the season. And you can see I've got corn in there. I've got kale sort of in the front. And then anywhere where you see these wooden stakes, that's basically for tomatoes. The tomatoes grow taller than those stakes. So this is mid-growing season. So on my property, what I did was I really wanted to kind of demonstrate what people can do with different size gardens. And I think a lot of times when people see my main garden, they get a little bit overwhelmed because it is pretty large and it's a lot to maintain. But that main garden is basically the same size as a footprint of a 3-family house, backyard. And then I have another garden right next to the sidewalk, right on the street side, the curb side, which is 500 square feet that I built. And in that garden, there's about 200 square feet of growing space. And also, you can grow basically a salad at lunch and a vegetable at dinner for the entire growing season for a family of 6 in this space. I really wanted to demonstrate that even if you just had kind of a front yard or a small amount of space, if you are a homeowner and you usually have about 500 square feet. And one of the principles in designing both of these gardens is you want these gardens to be inviting. Yes, it's about producing food and producing vegetables in enough quantities that you can, bring it inside and feed your family. Enough food, we're not having like 1 carrot and like a potato and then like maybe some salad. These are hearty portions that we're able to grow here, so we're not starving ourselves. But one thing that's really important is you want gardens to be inviting. Especially vegetable gardens, you want them to be inviting. You want them to be a place where you're going to go and spend time out there and just enjoy what you've done. So in both of these gardens, I've got, in the larger garden, which you can't see in the picture, I have a larger trellis with a seating area underneath it. I've grown grapevines on it. It's very beautiful. It's great to hang out there any time of day, morning, noon, night. And a lot of times people will come and, maybe come to a meeting and then I just bring them directly outside. I don't even bring them inside. So some people might think that I've been rude in the past, but I'm like, why am I going to go inside? It's too beautiful out. I have this beautiful seating area. Let's, experience nature and experience our environment. My 500 square foot garden, it basically has a small pond that I put in one of the raised beds. And also, I did the whole thing entirely by myself. And I actually have a DVD series out on Amazon.com, also olivebarn.com. I will flash the DVD right here. And it's a 2-disc DVD. In the second DVD, it's basically 2 hours of me building the 500 square foot garden from scratch. Now, if you're going to do this at home, you want your family involved. You want them fully invested in the process as well. So I don't recommend that you go out and do it yourself, but I really wanted to show and prove that if I can do it, I'm 5'0". If I can, lay down the gravel and lay down the stone dust and the pavers and build the raised beds and install a pond and fencing and trellises and all that great stuff, that anybody can do it. So you can see that on my DVD, the whole process of, going out there, measuring it and, digging in the soil, leveling it, the whole process, which was a lot of fun to do. And that is the side garden. I wanted to make an impact on my street side. I didn't want to shut people out of the process. I wanted them to see it. People, when they're driving up, they see the corn stalks growing on my sidewalk. They're like, okay, that's Patty's house. So I wanted to definitely share that. I think a lot of times we can really be contagious when, we beautify our property. Have you ever gone and maybe painted your house or, put on a new roof, and then a couple weeks later, your neighbor down the street is doing something to their house, and another neighbor is then doing something to their house. So I wanted to really get other people in my neighborhood invested in the process as well. One of the things I did, total side note, but one of the things I did one year, a neighbor of mine has chain link fence. Now, in the city, everybody has chain link fence almost. And when you buy property that does have chain link fence, and you might want to remove it and replace it with something else, but that's usually the property line that's been like properly surveyed by, somebody that you got to pay a lot of money to say this is your property line, and you never want to remove that. And, then get a new fence reinstalled that might be installed improperly, giving your neighbor or taking from your neighbor. So what I say, and also chain link fences are probably even more expensive than a nice wood fence. So my neighbor has this chain link fence. It's been there forever. It's a little rusty. It's a little old. And one day I had some extra cucumber seedlings, and I said to him, I've got these extra plants. Can I just plant them along your chain link fence? He said, sure, no problem. And I don't know if you know, but cucumbers are vining plants. They're vining crops, so they can grow vertically. And I planted them along the chain link fence, started training them up the fence. In a few weeks, it was this beautiful wall of green. He had huge cucumbers. And the next year, he planted his own garden. So that right there, I was like, yay, I love it. It is contagious. I did get somebody to garden. Great sense of satisfaction on that. But my smaller garden, my demo garden that I'm really, really proud of, and I hope that you guys will come to one of my open houses later on next year in the spring when there's kind of something to see. Right now, it's just a lot of leaves and a lot of, wind-blown tree branches all over the place. So nothing really too exciting to see. But I do give tours of the property periodically so that you guys can come and really see what I've done. I also have a website, if you guys didn't know. It's gardengirltv.com. And there I've got just so many hours of video that you can watch for free on anything and everything that I'm talking about tonight, and just organic gardening in general. But back to sort of garden design and urban sustainable living. So throughout this whole process, for me, one of my goals was really to show people what I do. I don't necessarily do it the way everybody else does, and there's many different ways to garden. I use raised beds. I like using raised beds. I brought the garden up to me, so I don't have to bend over as much. I do less work. It's less weeding. So for me, it's much easier. Also, in the city, we might not know what's exactly in our soil, and a lot of times, there are abatement issues, or there was, an old factory on the property or something. And using raised beds, I'm filling that with, 100% organic soil. So I know exactly what is going to be going into my plants. And for me, that's important as well. I love the raised bed gardening method. And for me, I use just wooden dimensional lumber, 2x10 by 8s, to build it. And then I stack one on top of each other so that it's up roughly 19 inches high. And you don't have to do that. Square foot gardening teaches you that you only need 6 inches off the ground to grow vegetables successfully. But again, I want, I don't want to bend over as much. I don't want to work as hard. So I've raised it up. And also that allows me to then put seating off of the raised bed. So I've got benches and little cushions, and now I can hang out in the garden, and weeding is never a problem. If I'm out there, with a friend of mine, having tea or something, automatically it's like breathing. I'm automatically weeding if there's a weed around. So it just makes it really family friendly to go out there and enjoy the garden. I also evolved into not only growing my own food, but really saying, what am I doing this all for? It's not just, to have something to do. It's really because, A, I want to eat healthier. I want to green the environment. I want to have a connection with nature. But I am a city girl. I grew up in New York City. I still live in the city. I would probably be completely lost in the country and wouldn't know what to do with myself. So I'm pretty much going to be a city girl for my life time. But what we need to do a lot to really preserve our culture for future generations. The way we're going now, something like 70% of the world's population is going to live in urban centers in the next 20 years. That, to me, is an astounding amount of people. And how are we going to be able to continue to ship in our food from so many miles? We're going to have to grow our own food and have backyard gardens. But what I do is really incorporate all of these principles into an urban lifestyle. So I'm not, sort of the, I guess, quintessential hippie. I haven't gone off grid. I'm not, wearing patchouli or, Jesus sandals. Sorry if you do. I'm not trying to say anything, but it's fine for you. I like, leather high boots, sorry, and heels, and doing my nails and hair products. So, but, there are things that we can do to live more sustainably. One of them is really, invest the time in our outdoor space, make it inviting, plant more trees. It hurts me physically when I see, people move into a new home and they cut down the trees. Like, that to me is completely the opposite. For me, when I moved into the newer, larger property, there were so many trees. We did cut down trees. We cut down actually 27 trees, but those trees were either rotten, falling down, would have destroyed our house, were growing sideways. And then I planted like 45 trees in their place. So I didn't just say, no trees, let's pave it. And, that's what happens all the time. So we have to really have a connection with nature and grow food. And one thing that all of us can do, if we've got a piece of land, even if you have a nice sized patio, let's say, maybe not a balcony in an apartment high rise, but a nice sized patio, you can grow fruit trees. You can grow dwarf fruit trees yourself. For me, I just never saw that growing up. So for me, I never thought that was possible. And that's so rewarding when you can actually add that into your life and, share that with people as well. So I've got the sort of green aspect of it, but then there's all that other stuff. There's conserving energy, and that's a huge one. I think that's something that over time, we're going to get better and better at, because, even I think George Bush on like day one said Americans should use as much electricity as they want. So that right there is completely irresponsible. He literally said that day one. So for me, I'm just like, no, actually we need to do the exact opposite. We need to try and conserve energy. We need to show people how to conserve energy. We need to, practice that. We need to do the things like bring our own bags and not have plastic bags when we go to the supermarket. And I've still struggled with that all the time. I'm not perfect at all. And, sometimes I'll forget to bring my bags with me to the supermarket. And then, isn't it horrible when you see other people that they brought their bags and then you forgot your bag? You feel terrible. So what I do is I kind of punish myself a little bit, and I don't take any bags. And I just put all the stuff back into the cart and go to my car and take every single thing one by one out of the cart and put it in my car. And guess what? The next time I go to the store, I remember my bags. So, there's certain things, it's really on us to take it upon ourselves to follow through and keep getting better at all those kinds of things. So, recycling, reusing, reducing our use of electricity and energy. But there's also a lot that we can do with energy. And I think that if you are a homeowner and you have land and you've bagged up your leaves, very bad, we have energy that we misplace. And our society has done things that are kind of ass backwards, if you don't mind me saying that. Bagging up your leaves and putting them on the sidewalk so that the garbage collectors can collect them is not green or sustainable or good for our environment at all. Those leaves need to remain where they've landed, basically, and that's energy right there. If you can take that and compost that, and then use that in your garden for your trees, for your lawn, if you have one, or your vegetables, that is energy that you then don't have to go and buy compost. You don't have to buy fertilizer. So one of my big goals is to get everybody to start composting, especially their yard waste, and not only their yard waste, but their indoor kitchen waste. Because I'm an organic gardener and I use fresh vegetables from my garden every day, I've got that waste every day. And what I've started is a worm bin indoors. And there's a video actually online on how to make your own worm bin. And I didn't go out there and like kind of buy, the whatever plastic worm bins that they have out there for sale. I utilized what I had available to me. And all of us have that sort of Rubbermaid bin, storage bin, that has God knows what in it, that you don't even know what's in there, that you never look in. Get rid of that and start a worm bin in it. And what I did was I took a Rubbermaid bin, an 18-gallon Rubbermaid bin, put some holes on the bottom, put some holes on the side, and put a layer of cardboard on the bottom, put a bunch of shredded newspaper. I do still read the newspaper. I guess I'm just a 20th century gal. But take that newspaper. What are we going to do when there are no more newspapers? What are we going to compost? That's what, every time I compost. Every time I compost my newspaper, I say, "Oh gosh, what are we going to do when we don't have this?" But shredded newspaper, put that in there. Put a little bit of soil, any kitchen scraps or any cuttings, if I pruned any of the plants that I had indoors, and then about a cup's worth of worms. Red wiggler worms, if you're writing down the specifics. You don't want to use earthworms because they won't survive. But red wigglers will do the job beautifully. Put them in there, and then anytime you have any kitchen waste, or I've now used any sort of junk mail or bills, no plastic, but I use that as my brown matter as well. And then the green matter is just the kitchen scraps. And there's going to be a video soon on my follow-up of the worm bin. I've got so many generations of worms now. A worm actually eats half of its weight per day. So if you've got a pound of worms in there, it will eat half a pound of material per day, per 24-hour period. And worms are very active at night, and it's got to be in a cool, dark area. And Hubert has some of my worms. They are now in Cambridge. Roxbury worms have now infiltrated Cambridge. And that's one of the things I do too. I grow so much. Obviously, my family can't eat all of it. And in order to be sustainable, I share that, and I also sell a lot of my seedlings, extra seedlings that I have, and any of my vegetables to my neighbors. That, brings in a little bit of income, and we can, buy chicken feed, because I also have chickens. I'll get into that in a little bit. But it's just another way to be sustainable, and, it's a fair price for the product. And, I'm not a garden center, so I'm not trying to, make a profit. I don't think I could make a profit anyway if I priced anything accordingly. I think that's very important. I think it's if you have a garden, to share that with your friends and your neighbors and be open to that. And about maybe 3 years, 4 years ago, I just put a sign in the corner of my sidewalk that said organic farm stand and an arrow, and didn't tell anybody, just put the sign out. And for me, it was really actually exciting to see and meet what crazy person would just go into somebody's yard that said they have an organic farm stand in the middle of the city. So I met some amazingly interesting people, tons of neighbors of mine, also people just driving, kind of cutting through the neighborhood came as well. And some of those people are really good friends of mine to this day. We hang out on a weekly basis. A friend of mine that I met this way was Nadine, and she's a chef. She's a local chef. And so for an organic gardener, meeting a chef is like, yay, finally, okay, somebody who knows what to do with all this stuff for real. And you know, she's taught me tons of recipes, and I've helped her learn about gardening and growing vegetables. And you know, I'll say, hey, what do you want me to grow in this bed? You know, and she'll give me some different varieties of vegetables that she wants me to grow, and then we'll try them out in the kitchen. So it's a lot of fun too. Another thing I love about being an urban gardener is including children in the process. And I think that we have to give that connection to nature to our children. You go to the zoo is like the most non-natural environment, in my opinion. They have that little, the Franklin Park Zoo has that little sort of farm area, and that's like not what farms are. So for me, I love just bringing them in, and on Saturday mornings, I'll just have various neighbors who have kids who just, you know, go for a walk on a Saturday morning, picking weeds along the way and then bringing them to my chickens or my rabbits. And, you know, actually seeing the egg that was just laid and then taking it home and cooking it and making something out of it. A fresh egg, I don't know if you have ever had a fresh egg before, but they are so delicious. They taste so much different from a store-bought egg. They're much heartier, and I want to say meatier, but obviously it's not meat, but just they're heartier, they're more nutritious. You can taste the flavor. You can taste the goodness, the healthiness from the egg. You know, I have chickens. We did go through an egg overload for a while with the eggs, but we do also share that with our neighbors too. One of my neighbors down the street, the next corner over, comes on Sunday and says, all right, I need a dozen eggs. I need, you know, this herb, these vegetables, and, you know, prepares her Sunday brunch, which for a lot of people is a ritual with their families, but prepares her Sunday brunch using my food. And that is, you know, amazing. I love that. I love the fact that they didn't go to the supermarket and buy it, and that they're eating something fresh and healthy. I think another amazing thing about growing my own food is the money I save. And I actually really do save money. And when you use square foot gardening, it's all about saving money. It's all about maximizing your growing space. So even if you have a 4x4 raised bed, you can grow so much in that space. So that's, you know, 16 square feet, right? Doing my math right. And then when you run down all of the different vegetables, for example, an onion, you can grow 16 onions per square foot. A tomato plant, you can grow 1 tomato plant per square foot. And 1 tomato plant can give you between 10 and 30 pounds of tomatoes. You can grow in 1 square foot 1 broccoli plant. In 1 square foot, you can grow 2 cucumber plants. And those 2 cucumber plants are gonna, you know, really be prolific. They're gonna give you multiple cucumbers throughout the growing season. One of the great things about getting, you know, kids involved and my family involved, I never have to give my child a snack during the growing season. She comes home from school and goes straight for the garden and pulls the cucumber right off the vine and does her own thing. And that right there is, you know, it's a healthy food choice. She knows how to make those healthy food choices, and it's great to be able to provide that to her. Another more square foot gardening tips. a lettuce, for example. You can grow 4 heads of lettuce per square foot. Cabbage, 1 head of cabbage per square foot. I also love just eating baby greens. So I'll just broadcast the seeds, just very scientific term, very willy-nilly. That's what I like to use. I just broadcast them, and as soon as they start growing to about 1 to 2 inches, I start picking them and adding them to my salads. And I really don't grow heads of lettuce anymore. I just eat it as it's growing, which is great, and it's super nutritious, healthy, fresh, and delicious. I did want to show, just in case you guys haven't gone to my website or my YouTube channel, show you one video on basically me and my almost record tomato. So let's see if I can work this computer here, and it's about 2 minutes long.
Tomato season is in full swing, and I have something amazing to show you. Over here I have my Tiffin Mennonite heirloom tomatoes, and I just found a whopper. Look at that. Now, right here in my hand, I just did a little research online, and I have the Massachusetts Tomato Contest winners here. I am going to see how my tomato stacks up with all of our Massachusetts farms out there. So I'm going to do a little unofficial measurement of the tomatoes. So now let me clip this, and oh, I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. Wow. This is unreal. Whoa, look at this. It's like almost the size of my head. Now, the lightest, heaviest tomato is 1.76. So if we're over 1.76, then we'll be in the top 10. Unofficially, of course. Wow. So this cluster here of 3 is also part of the cluster from my big whopper. So I'm gonna go measure this and see where we are. Ooh, it's heavy. So I'm here at my local corner store, and I'm gonna see if I can use their scale to weigh my delicious, amazing, huge, monster heirloom tomatoes. Hey, how are you? I was hoping that you could do me a favor by weighing these tomatoes for me. I grew these in my garden. Drop it on, all right.
1.6 pounds.
Oh, so close. Oh, all right, let me throw these on too, though, just for kicks. Here. Wow. All right. Boo-hoo-hoo, bummer. Wah. Wah for me, 1.62, that's all right. There's always next year.
So that's one of my favorite videos, by the way, just of me growing in my garden. And I just think that's a great example of what you can do. I mean, I never set out to grow a record tomato at all. And just growing organic food, that's what I got. Food prices are so expensive now, and you go to those farmers markets, and they have the heirloom tomatoes, and they have all those cool names, and then you go to buy one, and it's like, what? It's so expensive, So for me, being able to do that, I spent like, I don't even know, pennies to actually on the seed that I use to grow that plant. I start everything from seed that I have. For me, I just like the whole process. A lot of times when you do get seedlings, unfortunately, they aren't grown organically. And, I want to know exactly what goes into my vegetables. So that was just a great example of, also, I went to the corner store because I wanted a proper scale to weigh those that was, certified by the city of Boston. I'm going to close this. So I just have a lot of fun in the garden, and I think when you see the rest of my videos online, you'll see that, and hopefully you'll be inspired to start your own garden as well. I think one of the things that I also do in the garden is, as sort of traditional as I try and be, and as sort of, you know, conscious of the environment as I try and be, I also utilize the technology that we have. I don't think there's any shame in that. I think we need to, you know, take advantage of the age that we live in too, and not just, you know, kind of revert back to sort of the early 1900s. And one of the things I do in my garden is I have a drip irrigation system. And that right there is super important. I installed it myself. There's a video online too of me installing it. It's super easy. And what does that do? It allows you to conserve water. So I don't spend as much water on my garden. It is watered at the appropriate time. So if I'm not home, it's on a timer, and when it's supposed to be watered is when it's watered. And now I can finally go on a little vacation from time to time because I don't have to worry about putting a neighbor in charge or my family in charge when I'm away. So it kind of idiot-proofs the garden as well. I think it's very important that you do that. Mel, his sort of philosophy on watering is for you to have a bucket next to your raised bed with like a cup or a ladle, and then just water each square foot and each plant at the base with the cup or ladle, and that's fine. That's a great way of doing it. You can collect rainwater, have that bucket right next to you, or if you do get it from the municipal water supply, if it is in a bucket, you know, any sort of nasty chemicals are gonna hopefully evaporate after a while as you know, just leave it there. For me, that's just too not idiot-proof. So I've installed this drip irrigation system, and it basically, you know, gives the plant water where it needs it, when it needs it, at the right amount. So I'm never overwatering, I'm not underwatering. So I think that's something that's very important, and it goes along with, you know, conserving our resources and energy, if you will. What else? Okay, so we're about at the 6:50 mark. So we've got roughly another hour. Let me get a little bit into sort of what I call gardening by cuisine, and then I'll open it up for questions. Basically, throughout this whole process, my gardening evolved into gardening by cuisine. I think a lot of us out there who have grown our own vegetables in the past, and raise your hand if this has happened, at some point, especially because we all live in Massachusetts, at some point you have like so many pounds of squash or zucchini, am I right? Like too much. And you know, your neighbors and your coworkers get sick of accepting zucchini from you, and because that's what you do with it, you share it. It's too much. So what I do is in each one of my raised beds, I grow vegetables according to cuisine and according to the meals that I want to eat. One of my raised beds is an Asian cuisine raised bed, and a great restaurant in JP that is no longer there was this Thai restaurant, and they had this amazing Thai cabbage salad. And for me, I just loved it. It had the peanut sauce, the light vinaigrette, the lemongrass, you know, cabbage, vegetables, and it was just delicious. Anytime I went there, I would always get that same thing. So once they closed, I was like, where am I gonna get my Thai cabbage salad? So I said, I'm gonna grow all of the things that I need for that. So I grow Thai cabbage in there, lemongrass, also some Thai eggplant, you know, Thai basil, just anything I need for that specific meal. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at your garden, because a lot of times you'll be like, okay, tomatoes, squash, you know, eggplants, corn, and then nothing is ripe at the same time, and so you have fresh corn from your garden, but everything else is store-bought. So one way to kind of just eliminate that and to really have complete meals that are from your garden that's what you do. You take your raised bed and you plant all of the things that you need for that particular meal. Rule of thumb, for the most part, is that anything that goes well together in a meal will grow together well. So, you know, you're not going to go too wrong when you're growing things. Like a tomato and potato don't go well together in a dish, so you don't want to grow them together. One of the things I did manage to do, though, is grow a really good harvest of potatoes. And I don't know if you guys knew that you can grow potatoes in your backyard. And I started, you know, with organic seed from Maine. I try and use as many things that are local as possible, local garden centers, and again, like I said earlier, growing everything from seed, because that way I know exactly what I grew, when I grew it, what was used to grow it. So I've got an Asian raised bed. I also have a raised bed for making Italian tomato sauce. You know, one plant can give you 10 to 30 pounds of tomatoes. I grow, you know, I don't know, maybe 100 tomato plants, literally, every single year. Now, there might be gardeners out there who know about sort of cross-pollination of your tomato plants. I live on 3/4 of an acre, so it really doesn't matter how many tomatoes I grow. They're all going to cross-pollinate because they're never going to be far away enough from each other. So I don't really even worry about that. And that's kind of I have that Tiffin Mennonite tomato, I think, probably had something to do with cross-pollination and making it grow that big. And I also had next to that yellow Tiffin Mennonite tomatoes too. And I love yellow tomatoes. I don't know if any of you have had them. And if you have sort of, awesome, if you have sort of heartburn or have problems with red tomatoes, yellow tomatoes have less lycopene, obviously, like the lycopene is what makes it red. So the yellow tomatoes have less of that. So they're going to be a little bit easier on your stomach and can be equally enjoyed. So I got out of that the red Whopper and a bunch of yellow Whoppers as well. And then since those have cross-pollinated on your property, and then if you save those seeds, that's basically the beginning of your own heirloom seed variety. So don't be shy about worrying about whether your tomato is going to be pure, you know, whatever, Roma tomato or not. I love the different kind of varieties that I might get, and saving the seeds and then planting them and seeing what you get, and then saving those seeds and planting them and seeing what you get. A lot of the things I do, a lot of the things I plant are heirloom varieties of all of the vegetables. And that's important to me too, because you need that genetic diversity. The things that you get at the supermarket, you know, they're there because they ship well, they will ripen over time, they won't have, you know, bruising. Heirloom tomatoes, and don't be scared if you've never grown one and you start growing your own, they're gonna be quote unquote ugly. They're gonna have spots on them. They're gonna have markings on them. They're not gonna be perfectly round like you might think a tomato should be. Tomatoes shouldn't be perfectly round necessarily, unless that's the variety. So in my tomato sauce raised bed, I have 3 different types of tomatoes that will all ripen relatively at the same time. So I've got like a nice juicy one, a smaller paste tomato, and then just a smaller variety of between 10 and 12 ounce tomatoes so that I can have my tomato sauce. In that raised bed, I also grow the oregano, the basil, the onions, peppers, anything that's gonna go together in this tomato sauce. And then a couple of times a year, once I've harvested it, it's usually probably within the same couple of months, really. I'll harvest, you know, whatever's ripe at that time, and then make a big vat of tomato sauce, and then jar it and can it up. A lot of these things you can preserve for use later. I like making the meal and then preserving that in the jar, as opposed to just cutting up the tomato or having whole tomatoes in the jars. I like making the meal, so when I open it, it's ready to go. It's one of the really probably most fun parts of it is actually, you know, then making a meal and enjoying it and tasting it, and, you know, inviting your friends over for, you know, either actually, you know what I've gotten into? Making mixed drinks with herbs. It's very, very good. You know, spending some time in New York, you go to those martini bars and they're like, oh, cilantro martini, cucumber this. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this myself. So got the little, you know, whatever mixers and put that all together, and I don't have to pay, you know, $13 for a martini anymore. And I can buy top shelf because that's all I'm spending on it. But so there's so many different things you can do. I think when you're growing this in your garden, you're not really waiting for just that one meal. Throughout the process, there's different things that you can do with what you're growing. So for example, your onions, when they first start growing and they're green on the top, that's basically a scallion. So you can start harvesting those and using the scallions in your meal. I learned how to make scallion pancakes recently. They're delicious, especially when you make them fresh. They're much better than the Chinese food restaurant. Let me tell you, if you make them fresh, delicious. My daughter just loved them, and every day practically she's like, when are you gonna make scallion pancakes again? There's also, you know, in the process of the tomatoes growing, the basil is there. And I'll pick that and I'll use that and make pesto sauce with it. I make amazing pesto sauce. And I also like adding lime basil with it. And every now and then you just get that citrusy tinge to it. A lot of meals that I have are just really high-end gourmet variety of vegetables. So there's so much that can be gained from just taking that first step and starting to grow your own food in your backyard. I think I'm going to open for questions now. Is that cool with you? Would you like to come up? Should I go ahead and, okay. Does anybody have any questions? We're gonna pass you a microphone so that everybody can hear your question. We have somebody right here, sort of in the middle here.
Hi, can you talk about your chickens and rabbits, please?
Oh yeah, I said I would talk about my chickens and rabbits. I have a small flock. Actually, the numbers on those pets is a little bit different now. We had to put one of our dogs down recently, and another cat showed up and just adopted our property, so I've got more cats. And I only have actually 10 chickens right now. But what I've done is I've incorporated the chickens into my garden and my property in an urban appropriate way. That was very important to me. I didn't want chickens kind of wandering around and going into neighbors' yards, and it's just not nice if somebody doesn't want a chicken in their yard. So I really took into account just being urban appropriate and considerate of my neighbors. I don't have any roosters at all. I raise them from little chicks. So they're basically my pets at this point. And what I've done, which is kind of innovative in the garden, is I've modularized the garden, because now that I have the raised beds, they're all 4x8 raised beds. So anything like a trellis or hoop houses or anything that I add to them, they are interchangeable with each bed. And what I've done is I've adapted the chicken tractor method. I don't know if you guys have heard of the chicken tractor method of raising chickens to the garden bed. And I've built a cage that fits perfectly in the garden bed, you know, with obviously shelter from the elements for my chickens to live in, and also my rabbits. And, you know, chickens provide that natural fertilizer. That's probably why I got that Whopper tomato there that I got. And they also till the soil. They help me do that. They eat bugs. And then they also eat anything that's left over, any weeds that are still there, or any, you know, stalks of whatever was growing there. So they help me out. I don't have to pull that out. I don't have to dig or turn the bed at that moment. I can just give it to my chickens. And then my rabbits kind of do the same thing. And rabbits, you know, they burrow very deeply. So they'll burrow down to the bottom, bring that soil up to the top, so I don't have to do that. So they're really helping me in the garden as well as being great pets. Any other questions?
Hi.
Thank you.
Do you eat your chickens and rabbits or just the eggs?
I actually have. Meat birds are kind of a different thing. And when you raise birds for meat, it's a very short process. It's about an 8-week process. You don't want to actually raise them past 8 weeks, because then any sort of money savings that you would get is just gone out the window because you're feeding them for longer. And also by the time they get to 8 weeks old, they're pretty big. They're about 8 to 10 pounds, and that's a big sized bird. So when I want meat birds, I'll just raise a batch for that period of time and then get them slaughtered. I don't slaughter them myself, but I get them slaughtered. And then we've got, you know, a good amount of chicken in our freezer. And it's fun. It's actually it's a different taste. I swear to you that eating fresh chicken, you get a buzz. That's all I'm saying. Yes.
When you planted those 45 trees to replace the ones you had to remove, what kinds of trees did you plant, and why did you choose those particular species?
Okay, cool. I planted mostly fruit trees. And I planted mostly semi-dwarf or dwarf fruit trees, different apple varieties, and a plum tree, and also a pear tree. The different varieties, what's great about being able to plant a variety of fruit trees is that you can stagger your harvest that way. So you might plant a tree that is going to get ripe in July, and then plant another one that's going to get ripe, you know, in August, another one in September. You know, your pears are going to come in August, September. I eat them when they're not as ripe, as I love crunchy pears, but I like them soft too. So either way works well. So I've planted a wide variety of that. And also when you plant, especially apple trees, most fruit trees, but apple trees in specific, you have to have different varieties for them to cross-pollinate. You can't just have Macintosh apples or something. You have to have more than one variety for that process to happen. I also try and grow anything that's kind of, I don't want to say quite native to this area, but from this area. And in New England, especially Boston, we have a rich tradition in agriculture, and the Bartlett pear. Bartlett Street is right down the street from my house. You know, the russet apple. So I try and honor the New England heritage and also plant those kinds of varieties, even though they're not specific heirloom. And there are some places where you can get very old tree specimens of trees that have been grafted. Those definitely tend to run you a lot more money than just kind of going like a mail order or something like that. So if you want to be like uber traditional, you can get like, you know, a very old apple tree or you know, something that George Washington grew or Thomas Jefferson or something. But there are also just, you know, regular varieties everywhere else. I also have, you know, a container garden as well, because I wanted to show people that if they have containers, you can do it. You can do it too. So I've planted small varieties of cherry trees in containers on my patio, and also grapevines. And those require, you know, at least between 20 and 30 gallon containers. I use a lot of galvanized metal. It doesn't rot, it doesn't rust, rather, and they're also very inexpensive. You know, one of those garbage cans at a you know, building supply store, it's like $17. You can't buy a 30-gallon container for that price, you know. So, and I think it looks cool in my patio. So I hope that answered your question. I also did a lot of like juniper trees, just to have a border along my wall. Trying to think of what other trees I planted. I planted some miniature peach and nectarine trees as well that are hardy to our climate, because as you know, you've got to get the specific variety that's going to grow here. And Georgia is the peach state, so you got to get the right plants for that. But it's really surprising how much fruit you can get from mini and dwarf fruit trees. And then I keep them pruned relatively small because I am short, so that I can reach all of the harvestable fruit whenever it's ready. that answer? Okay. Yes.
How do you prevent unwanted animals from eating your fruits and vegetables?
Well, there's a lot of different things that you can do. I have hoop houses that I put on my garden beds during the spring. I have my garden, I plant my garden before anybody else does, and then put them in these plastic hoop houses that I make out of just PVC piping with a ridge pole down the middle with wing nuts. So it's very like basic, construction, if you will. And put the thick plastic over it. No animals are going to get in that way. When it's time to take that off, there's another product that I use, which is a plastic as well, but it's got, it's not holes, but it's like a woven plastic, sort of. It was called microclima. They changed the name of it, but it's, so that will keep the pests out. And then you can also build, if you have the raised beds, build just a wire enclosure that's gonna not prevent you from watering it or from the plant growing, but it'll prevent animals from coming in. Because I am sort of now closer to nature, most pests, if you will, are not pests, they are wanted. So I've got a little possum that we've named Timmy that lives in our neighborhood now, that comes and hangs out with us on occasion, and he stays over there and we stay over here and wave at each other, and he does his thing and I do my thing. Got a skunk that comes around quite a bit also, which I don't mind. The most amazing thing happened the other day. Literally, I have a huge, like maybe 10,000 gallon pond in my front yard. I got a hawk to actually come and land and hang out with me on my property. This has been like a 7-year dream to actually see a humongous bird come down. I was hoping for a heron personally, but a hawk came down, and it's not a baby hawk, but a teenager hawk. We figured out that by looking at pictures and the markings, and of course we whipped out the video camera, have tons of video and stills, and it was really weird. It was on the edge of the pond, totally didn't mind that we were there, and we were just like on the other side of the pond. This is, in a small yard, and then it just would like jump into the water and then come up and land again, jump into the water and then come up and land again. So we've seen him a couple of times since then. So I don't mind it, and I think I've got so much growing anyway that I can share a little bit of it. So I don't really worry about it too much. And I like having nature and being in the city, and I haven't seen a raccoon around lately, but I know they come around.
Hi, Patty. I had a big problem with slugs this summer, especially with the wet. I mean, do you have any suggestions that's non-pesticidal that could be natural? I mean, I've heard about beer and stuff like that, but can you share?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Last year was a huge slug year with all the rain that we got, and a lot of people were complaining about that. One thing I want to definitely let you know is that if you see like little holes bitten in through from the slugs, that means you're doing it right. That means you actually are doing it organically. You want those little imperfections. There is no perfect garden unless you're gonna like start using chemicals, and there's nothing perfect about that to me. That right there, you're putting toxins in your body when you eat that. So seeing that doesn't bother me. And my daughter and I will go out, and if it's time to like sort of check things out and weed, and we see any slugs, we'll get those slugs and either feed them to our chickens or also to our fish, our koi fish, devour them left and right. But if you don't have chickens or koi fish, what you can do is definitely the beer thing. It totally works. Just take a whatever bowl, put beer, put it in the middle of your raised bed. The next morning, there will be slugs in there. And it's a totally organic way, and dare I say humane way, of getting rid of the slugs, because they do kind of get in there and drown. So that's not nice. But there's also different products out there that are organic that you can spray to keep slugs away. Another thing I do, and it's also because I have tons of eggs, is with the eggshell, you break up the eggshells anytime you eat eggs and just start lining your raised beds with eggshells. And your slugs are not going to like that. It's like going over sort of, glass or something. It's like walking on glass for us, for them. So they start walking or sliming their way through, and they turn around and go away. So those are two ways that you can get rid of slugs. And there are great products out there that you can spray organically. There's tons of different fungicides that you can get that are organic fungicides too for any issues you might have if you see any sort of spots or fungus growing on your plants that actually do work. Pepper spray, like meaning, like either peppermint infused water or soapy water does work as well to get rid of some of those like spider mites and things like that. So there are a lot of organic remedies that you can try and definitely stay away from any non-organic Scott's products. Sorry if anybody works for Scott's that might be here checking me out. Sorry. Yes.
Do you do berries and brambles? And do you do all your own pruning?
I do all my own pruning, and I do berries and brambles. I have gooseberries, which are awesome, and I got a really good harvest this year. I also have tons of raspberry bushes. I have them along a lattice fence of mine, and you can plant them, and they go really well, companion planting them with grapevines, because they stay below, and your grapevines can then be trellised up and above, and they are compatible to be grown together. So I do that. I have blueberries, tons of blueberry bushes, and what I did for that is I stagger planted them, so I have one row, and then the second row behind it is like every other. That made sense. So that I have a thicker blueberry bush eventually as it grows. So I do. I love growing blueberries. And there's actually a very cute video that my daughter made. She just one day had it in her mind that she was going to make her own video. So she made it about picking blueberries and raspberries and adding them to her cereal. So definitely check that out. It's awesome, if I do say so myself. And I wasn't even there in the process, so it was very cool. She wrote the whole thing. She got the crew. She paid them $25. It was really cute.
Patty, we have a question back here about recommendations on plants that work well in the shade.
Oh, okay. What are plants that work well in the shade? Vegetables, specifically? Or just any shade plants? Any shade plants? Obviously your hostas, they're always great in the shade. Where I have, tons of trees, I grow a really good variety of hostas well. Let's see, what other shade plants? When you grow vegetables, they need that 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. So, sort of vegetables, you need that. One thing that can do with some shade are different types of herbs. They require less sunlight. What I've done on my whole property, I've tested the sun exposure in different areas of my garden, because we live in the city. When the trees are full and the buildings are there, we work during the day. You don't necessarily see where shade might fall or not. So there's this great product that is great to do with kids also. It's a great science experiment. Called a sun stick. It's actually listed in here. GoSunstick.com is their website. And it's great. It will tell you where in your garden or your yard that you have full sun, full shade, partial sun, and partial shade. And that's really more of a problem than anything else, is partial shade and figuring out if you have that or not. And it's very accurate to that. So once you have that information for different areas in your garden, at a nursery, that's how plants are sold. On the tag, it'll say full sun, full shade, partial sun, and you go from there. So the reading is equivalent to what you would do to purchase the plant. I'm just trying to think of other shade-loving plants. Yeah, rhododendrons you can grow, roughly in the shade, though I kind of like featuring rhododendrons, so they tend to always get wannabe, because sometimes those plants talk to me and they say, I want to be here. So they tend to want to be in sort of less shady areas. But there's different types of grasses that grow in shade. Also, I don't know if you guys took the pamphlet I had out there on Eco-Lawn. This is a grass that grows in full shade. I know, I couldn't believe it, but it's true. And I have one of my most recent videos is on the Eco-Lawn product, and basically it's a seed that is made from 7 different varieties of fescue grasses. And we know that when you're planting a lawn, you want to have multiple varieties of grass growing there in case one gets diseased or there's an issue. That other variety that doesn't have an issue in any particular time throughout the growing season will then fill that area in. The 7 different fescue grasses, I don't know if you guys know, I don't want to go over your heads or give you information you already know, but these fescue grasses grow in full shade. 75% less water is necessary for growing the lawn than traditional lawns. What's great about fescue is that the roots grow very, very long into the ground. So they'll grow 9 to 12 inches to find that water. You'll have a very thick mat very soon, and it grows in any soil conditions. Obviously, the richer soil, the better, but what's great about this is that it's fast to germinate and slow to grow, which will then cut down your maintenance time on mowing your lawn. And it looks great unmowed as well. It'll grow up to about 4 to 5 inches and then kind of start flopping over on itself, and it's gorgeous. I've got, in the pamphlet, you'll see there's a picture of what it looks like fully grown. And there's a video, like I said, online of how to, properly seed your lawn using an Eco-Lawn product. And there's a lot of people actually locally that are using it. I went and interviewed a guy in the Cape. And, all that is sandy soil. They don't have soil, they have sand. And his lawn is beautiful. I'm not really into the fresh cut lawn look. I love this sort of billowy, more natural look. And with my property has a lot of shade in the area where I want grass. So it's a great product. So Eco-Lawn grows really well in the shade. And you don't even have to fertilize it either. And if you have a landscaper or a gardener that comes in, they're going to be very sad when they see Eco-Lawn because you won't need them anymore.
Well, Patti, any more questions?
Any more questions?
Thank you very much for this inspiring and very informative presentation. And thank you all for coming out tonight.
Excellent. Thank you. Also, I just wanted to say